What's up? Travel Chronicles, chapter 70, I believe. We only got 30 left. It's possible we'll finish up by the end of the year, I guess, at this rate. Only 2 months left. But today, it's Friday, and tomorrow is the regional race. So we're not quite 24 hours away yet. We're almost 28 hours away from the race. And looked through the team rankings yesterday, at least, the opinion of 12 people who were voting on it. And right now there are, I believe, 10 teams ranked in our region. And there's probably an 11th team that's, finished better than us in a race where we were, doing our best. So that's, not overly encouraging. And it's kind of like, they're like a similar team, but just better at every spot. And cross country is, I was thinking about this yesterday. I don't want to say it's unfair sport. Like, it's probably the most fair sport out there. Competition. If you say like it's a, sport because of the bounce of the ball or, the call of an umpire is, it has zero implications in it. This is just pure competition. And that pure competition is, at its rawest in cross country, because you do all your work, you do your miles, your practices, and you come to the race and you got what you got. It's not going to depend on luck that day. It's not going to depend on a call. It's not going to come down to video review. Unless it's a photo finish. So, when you look at these rankings, and if you can compare apples to apples, and you can say, well, here's this team on this course, versus this other team, or at least here's the time they put down on this course, and there's a like a transitive property, I guess, where you can start looking at stuff. Well, this team raced this team here, and this team raced this team here. How did they do? How did they compare? So, going into the regional, we're probably 12, setting 12. With our strategy, our race strategy wise, maybe 11th, pre-race. And there's something, the regional race is different from any other race. Okay, it just is, because it's such a high level of competition. Like some of these other races, if you get 10 guys that can run, sub 17 or 17:15 or less, like that's pretty impressive, right? That would be the entire, the Buckeye 8 Conference, you got 10 teams in it, but the top 10 finishers, I think we were down, probably to like 18 minutes or something, right? So this just speaks to the level of this competition. You're going to have 30 guys or more run less than 17 minutes in this race, and that's what you have to do to be at a state qualifying line. And sometimes, if you're the number one or number two guy and you're used to being in the top, 15, 20 racers, you have to recalibrate, what that means. Because if you go out and you try to maintain with the top 15, 20 guys, that may not be your pace at all. Like, especially if you're used to running like even 17:20. Now you're running 30 seconds faster to stay with that top group, and it's a tall order because there's so many fast kids in this region. And I look back, not yesterday but before, I didn't realize that the region used to only qualify 4 teams for state up until about 6 years ago. Then they expanded it, and wouldn't you know, like the first 2 years, like the last year when it was 4, Martins Ferry was 5th. Like we were that close to making it, right? And then you keep adding teams, and it's like we just keep getting pushed back, and our district usually gets one spot. You have 3 different districts feeding into this regional, and we're lucky to get one team going on to state. And you know, this year I think we probably have the second best team in the region. I think the order will be Unioto. Like they're just so solid, top to bottom, and just like fast top to bottom. I think they may be better than Woodbridge. So I'm going to put Unioto at the top of the region. I think in this format, and I haven't looked at all the races, but Heath hasn't been. They're definitely not as strong as they were last year. They're ranked 7th, I think. But Riverview at one of the races was within 5 points of them. And the last race, the Heath guy came in, I think like 18:06 or something. That's going to be like, that's 100 and some points if he runs the same race at the region. You know, I'm not saying somebody didn't get hurt or just have a bad race, and that really wasn't their 5th guy. That was maybe their 6th or 7th guy. It just happened to be up there. But you know, that time's not going to do against Riverview. Riverview's got a solid team. Their top 5 is solid. 6 and 7, not so much. So if anything happens in their top 5, it may cost them a spot or 2. They're still going to state. Like even if it goes to the 6th or 7th guy, like, you know, they'd have to have 3 guys have a bad day in order to not make it, in my opinion. I think Riverview will beat Heath, you know, based on the district races. You know, maybe there's some incomplete information there, but I think Riverview will definitely qualify and probably be number 2. Then I'll put Heath at 3. For 4, 5, and 6, it's a little tough because I think Bexley has a really solid team, a solid group, but not like just a dude, right, that just goes out and runs. Sheridan's got a dude. They got a guy who's probably going to win the race. He won the race as a sophomore. Second, or I think he was 3rd as a junior, but ran a faster time than he did as a sophomore. And I don't know if there's anybody in the region that's going to compete with him this year, unless somebody just had a stellar. But I didn't see any times, you know, where somebody like D1 or somebody dropped down and say, "Oh, look, that kid's going to win the region." I think it's going to be this William Wilkie. I think he's going to win. But the rest of that Sheridan team, like I think they have another senior, and then the rest are freshmen that are scoring. And this race is tough, and I don't know what kind of advice, you know, if you got a really good runner, yeah, sometimes that, you know, that's going to help your team, but it's not going to help influence your team because these guys get used to running a race, especially the first year in high school. They get used to going out in a certain point, you know, being in with a certain number. If they try to go out and run that race there, they may not be able to keep up. And if you have such a strong runner, you know, like this kid who won as a sophomore, he may not be able to help those other guys, you know, to tell them what kind of, because he doesn't know what it's like to race in the middle of that pack. He's out front. It doesn't matter what the race is. He's out front. And maybe he's got 2 or 3 guys around him. He doesn't have 50. You know, and just getting caught up in that swarm. Sometimes guys, you know, kind of die off on the way back. So, you know, that could cost their team. But, you know, they just have such a strong top. I don't know that you can beat them. Watterson looks tough right now, too. They had 3 guys run sub-17 in a district. And, you know, their next 2 guys are not nearly as good. But, you know, 3 guys sub-17, that's almost 3 state quality. Like, it would be very, very difficult to have 3 guys in the top 35, let's say, because they were in the top 5 in their district. If you had 3 guys qualify for state, that's 120 points, you know, max. Actually, it's 90 points. So you'd have 130 points to play with for your next 2 guys. So if they can come in at, you know, 65, 70, somewhere in that range, you still have a shot to qualify for the state. You know, now if one of them 3 have a bad race, then all bets are off. But, you know, that team looked really tough. McDermott Northwest is still ranked ahead of Sheridan, the team that has the guy who can win. I think they'll make it. I think McDermott Northwest and Bexley are probably locks. Bexley just missed state last year by 1 spot, and it was only a couple of points. Waverly just beat them, so I think they're in. So that kind of leaves that 6th spot. Hebron Lakewood was good, was ranked the whole year, and they either got exposed or somebody got hurt the last race or held out. But they did not have a good showing in district. They're still going to be there, but they did not have a good showing. The other team, for me, probably Warren. I think Warren's kind of laying in the weeds a little bit, underrated. And the more teams that are in a race with better kids, I think it's not a benefit to Sheridan at all. So I think Warren will probably beat Sheridan. Sheridan finished 2nd in their district, but I think that kind of comes crashing down Saturday. They go from maybe being from being a top 2 district runner-up to being maybe 8 or 9 at the regional. That's a guess, though. I mean, those guys can come out. They could run really well. They could have some excellent coaching, directing them how to run here, and they can show out. If they do that, I think they're in. I think Sheridan's in if those guys run a good race. But I would put Warren probably there, at least in that 6th spot. And the only way that Martins Ferry runs in the 7th spot is to beat West Holmes finally. Which, looking at West Holmes, they just run a really paced race. Like last year, if you look at it, like they have one kid who's going to he should be a state qualifier, and then they have 2 other really fast kids, like number 2s, but then it's their 2 and their 3, and then the back end of their team is not great, but those top 3 guys are good. I think the more runners you put in a race, the more it benefits Ferry, because all our guys are going to be together. So the way that Ferry wins is you have a bunch of teams that have like 1 or 2 really good guys, like John Glenn. Meadowbrook didn't make it as a team. I'm not sure what other teams have. There's another team out there that has like a guy who's going to qualify for state, maybe another good second runner, but not, 3, 4, and 5 are not very good. Like that would benefit Ferry, because then you could have, some of these guys up front, and I'm talking like top 10, top 15, to push other teams, number 1s, number 2s back towards them, because Ferry's not going to run in the top 15. With all hope that Elijah does everything right, all of his prep, gets a good rest, stretched out, warmed up, hydrated, all those things, and comes in and runs top 30 so he can go to top 28 so he can go to state. But if they don't have that runner, then they're looking at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, it's going to be boom, boom, boom like that. They're going to be close together. They're going to beat a lot of other teams, 5 guys, but their 6 and 7 guy have to be in the top 80 probably, just to kind of displace guys on the back end. So you want really good guys on the front end, pushing other teams' best runners back some. And then you want all the Ferry guys to come in, and then you want other teams, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys to come in behind them. That's the only way that the math works, I think, for them. And normally 220 is the cutoff, so if we can keep track of where guys finish, we'll have a good idea pretty quick. And I think they do electronic timing, so you'll know right away whether you're making it or not. But that's all I got. I hope they do well. Best of luck to them. Sending positive energy. I'm still rooting for the possibility here. One more week. got to do everything right myself. Be a lot of running for me tomorrow too. All right, be careful. Stay COVID free. Later.